The sound of engines roared like thunder outside the small-town diner, shaking its old glass windows. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon in the sleepy town of Ridgefield, and yet, as a pack of black motorcycles pulled up in perfect sync, every head inside turned toward the door. They were the infamous Iron Hounds, a biker group that carried both fear and fascination wherever they went. At the center of it all was Logan Vance, their leader. Tall, broad-shouldered, with storm-gray eyes that seemed to see right through people, Logan was a man most avoided, but few could forget. Inside, the diner's air smelled of coffee and bacon grease, the kind of place that hadn't changed in decades. Behind the counter stood Mara, a young waitress in her early 20s, tying her apron tightly as she forced a smile for another customer. Her blonde hair was tied into a loose ponytail, but even that couldn't hide the faint purple mark along her jawline. It wasn't makeup, and it wasn't an accident. The moment Logan stepped inside, the chatter died down. The gang took their seats at a booth near the back, but Logan's gaze didn't leave Mara. She avoided his eyes, her hands trembling slightly as she poured coffee for an old man near the window. Something in the way she winced when she reached up to grab the sugar jar made Logan's chest tighten. A flicker of pain, fear, and exhaustion rolled into one fragile moment. He didn't know her story, but he knew pain when he saw it, and he couldn't look away. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that restore faith in humanity, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Let's spread hope, one story at a time. As the Iron Hounds settled in, the other customers hurried out, leaving only the hum of the ceiling fan and the clinking of cutlery. Mara finally approached their table, her voice quiet and polite. "What'll it be today?" she asked, her tone steady but her eyes avoiding his. Logan studied her for a second. Her wrists were thin, with faint bruises half hidden beneath her sleeves. When she reached to write his order, her hand shook slightly, and he could see the edge of a scar near her thumb. "Coffee," Logan said finally, his voice calm but deep. "And maybe some honesty." Mara froze. "Excuse me." He leaned forward slightly, his eyes softening. "You don't have to pretend you're okay," he said, almost in a whisper. For a moment, the mask cracked. Her lips quivered, but she forced a smile. "It's just work," she murmured and quickly turned away. But Logan knew better. He'd seen that same look years ago, in the mirror, back when his own life was falling apart. Hours passed, but Logan couldn't shake her from his mind. When the gang left, he told his crew to ride ahead without him. He stayed behind, leaning against his bike across the street as the evening sun began to dip. Mara came out of the diner at closing time, clutching her worn-out bag, her eyes scanning the street nervously. That's when Logan saw him, the man who came out moments later, grabbing Mara by the wrist hard. The man was mid-30s, rough and angry. He hissed something under his breath and Mara flinched. That was all it took. Logan's instincts kicked in before he even thought twice. He walked across the street, his boots heavy against the cracked pavement. "Let her go," he said, his tone low but commanding. The man turned, sneering. "Mind your business, biker boy." But Logan didn't flinch. "You made it my business the moment you put your hands on her." For a moment the man laughed, thinking Logan was bluffing. But then he saw the look in those storm-gray eyes. The look of someone who'd been through hell and came back harder. The man released Mara's arm with a mutter and stormed off down the alley. She stood frozen, breathing fast, her eyes wide with fear and disbelief. "Are you okay?" Logan asked quietly. She nodded, but tears welled in her eyes. "He's my boyfriend. I can't leave him. He says he'll find me." Logan exhaled, shaking his head. People like that don't love Mara. They control. That night, Logan waited until she got home safely. He didn't follow her inside, but he memorized the address, an old apartment complex near the edge of town. He knew trouble when he saw it, and he had a feeling this wasn't over. The next day, Mara came to work with darker bruises and a hollow look. Logan returned to the diner again, this time, alone. He sat in silence, pretending to read the menu, but watching her from afar. Every time she smiled at a customer, it broke his heart a little more. Later that afternoon, she slipped a small napkin onto his table while refilling his cup. It said, "Please stop coming. He'll notice." Logan read it and looked up. She was already walking away, but her shoulders were trembling. He didn't go back that week. But he didn't stay away either. He started making calls, asking around town. It turned out the man, Roy Halden, had a reputation. He'd been arrested before for domestic violence but somehow kept getting released. Nobody wanted to get involved, everyone said Roy was trouble. But Logan had seen worse men than Roy and buried them. 3 nights later it happened. Logan was at the mechanic shop his gang owned when he got the call from an unknown number. It was Mara. Her voice was broken, shaking. "He's here. He found me, please." And then the line cut. Logan didn't think twice. He jumped on his Harley, the engine screaming through the night. The iron hounds followed close behind, their headlights tearing through the darkness. When they reached the apartment, they could hear shouting from inside. Logan kicked down the door without a second thought. Roy had Mara cornered, his hand raised. She was crying, begging him to stop. Logan grabbed Roy by the collar and slammed him against the wall so hard the drywall cracked. "Touch her again," he growled, "and you'll answer to me." Roy tried to swing, but Logan blocked it easily and threw him to the ground. "You think hitting a woman makes you a man?" he hissed. "Let's see how tough you are when someone hits back." By the time the police arrived, called by a terrified neighbor, Roy was on the floor, handcuffed and furious, screaming threats. Logan didn't say a word. He just stood there, breathing hard, while Mara clung to a blanket one of the bikers handed her. When the officer recognized Logan, he sighed. "You again, Vance? Trying to play hero now?" Logan didn't respond. He simply turned to Mara and said, "You're safe now. He won't touch you again." Days passed, and the town buzzed with gossip. "Biker gang saves Waitress" was the headline in the local paper. People who once crossed the street to avoid Logan were now thanking him, shaking his hand. But for him, none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was that Mara was free. She quit the diner and moved temporarily into a safe house the Iron Hounds helped fund. Every few days, she'd visit Logan's garage, bringing coffee and shy smiles. Slowly, the color returned to her face, and her laughter, soft, hesitant, became the sound Logan looked forward to most. He never asked for thanks. He just made sure she had food, safety, and people who cared. One afternoon, she found him fixing a bike alone in the shop. The light from the open door hit his face, showing the faint scars across his cheek, remnants of a violent past. "Why did you help me?" she asked quietly. Logan paused. "Because once someone helped me when I didn't think I deserved it," he said. "And I swore I'd do the same for someone else." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "You saved my life, Logan." He smiled faintly. "No, Mara. You saved yourself. I just gave you a little push." Months later, Mara got a new job at a small bakery downtown. She was different now, stronger, confident, radiant. The townsfolk admired her resilience, often telling others how she turned her pain into purpose. She even started a local women's support group, helping others escape abusive relationships, using her own story as hope. As for Logan, he began to see the world differently too. The Iron Hounds were no longer just a feared biker gang. They became protectors of their community. They organized charity rides, raised money for shelters, and fixed broken homes one act of kindness at a time. People who once feared them now waved as they rode by. And in every smile, in every grateful tear, Logan saw a reflection of Mara's courage. On a bright spring morning, Mara visited the garage again. She handed him a small paper bag with a cupcake inside. "For my hero," she said, smiling. Logan chuckled. "Hero's a big word, Mara." She shook her head softly. "Not big enough for what you did." They stood in silence for a moment as sunlight streamed through the open door. There were no promises, no confessions, just quiet understanding between two people who had found light in each other's darkness. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, because the world needs more people who care enough to act, even when no one's watching. Before the ending, we have a small request. Comment below what you would have done if you were in Logan's place, and whether you believe second chances can truly change someone's life.